Okay, Darren here, bestauto.detailingtips.com, detailing made simple. We're working on a Mini Cooper today, Mini Cooper S. As is often in the case in detailing, we have what's called the bleed over effect, the ripple effect. One thing leads to another. So you become focused on doing a certain task, and then it bleeds into other tasks. And then the question comes, what is the proper sequence to clean, detail, polish, whatever you're doing? There will always be a proper sequence in order to avoid having to redo your steps. So unless you get that proper sequence correct, you will often be redoing your steps. So initially, I started out with thinking about vinyl. The inside of vinyl in cars can be very problematic, because it's one thing for the vinyl to get dirty, it's another thing for it to get scuffed up and scraped up. There's not a whole lot you can do about that. Another variable is black vinyl, because once you clean it, and depending upon the car, because everything in detailing is always a case by case, you've got the rules, and then you've always got the exception to the rules. So case by case, when it comes to vinyl trim pieces on the inside of the car, never mind the outside, they're not all created equal. They will have different textures to them. So is there some things you can do to raise the results that you're getting, the product that you're delivering, to a higher level? And the answer is always yes. But how do we do that? So I was going to demonstrate, for example, this threshold plate here. It's black, it was dirty, I've already cleaned it. So then I thought, okay, I can make a short little video, because this looks great. And for most of my customers, they would be completely happy and satisfied with this. But in my world, it's like, well, how do I over deliver and how do I make it better? Because I'm always looking for better. Good isn't enough. Good enough is not enough. Anyhow, so that's where dressing comes into it, and not all dressings are created equal. So a couple things, once again, is as I started thinking about this video, it's like, okay, it went from cleaning, okay, now dressing. Okay, wait a minute, what about the door jambs? I use the dressing on the door jambs often. But then it's like I'm looking at this bumper, and it's like, well, wait a minute, I know that as soon as I'm done with the inside, because as a rule, I will do the inside first, get it completely done, including the windows, and then move to the outside. But here we have what I call the bleed over. It's like, well, which comes first? You know, kind of like the chicken or the egg. Do I do this first? And then as I'm polishing, I'm going to get some overspray or splatter or dust in here. So then I do this first. But do I do this first and use dressing, and then the overspray and the dust is going to stick to the dressing? So you really have to break it down and define an order of sequence, so you're not repeating your steps, so therefore you're saving yourself time, which ultimately means you're going to be making more money. And that's what we want, right? Is how do we make more money? So I've broken this down. So there's a couple things I want to point out. So the first thing I have done is I've already cleaned this, which led me to the next step, is like, okay, I want to enhance it with this dressing I use from Stoner. It's an aerosol and it's very light. Now, I'm not a fan of thick, soupy, greasy, water-resistant dressings. All the dressings I use are water-based because I want to be able to remove them very easily. I merely want to enhance the surface superficially or aesthetically or visually, whatever you want to call it. But I want to be able to remove it each time, whether it's the engine, the tires, or the inside, because I don't want it to be so resistant to chemicals and being able to remove it, because what happens is dirt will be able to stick to it better. And if I'm not able to remove that dirt each time, if I need to redress it, then I'm actually going to be dressing over the old dirt. So it does present a problem. So as a rule, I always pick a water-based dressing. I like this product from Stoner. If you go to my website, it will look a little differently. As I've said in my other videos, I buy this in the case, which is a different product than the product that you will get in a single size serving. Nonetheless, it is a great product. But with that said, is before I dress this, I know that in order to polish this back bumper, which I will need to do, it has the typical scrapes and scuffs and abrasions on it, so I want to polish this bumper. But I have to keep the doors open in order to access the bumper completely. You'll notice I've already taped it off. I have two different, actually I have about 5 different sizes of tapes that I use. From 1/4 inch on up to, this is probably, I don't know, 2 inches. Let's just call that 2 inches. So depending on what I'm trying to tape off, I will just use the appropriate size for the job. It's pretty straightforward. So I actually have 2 sizes here. I use a smaller tape for the detail work as far as this plastic trim piece at the bottom. Then I use this big thicker tape to keep the splatter from getting deep inside here. Once again, I don't want to have to clean that up when I'm done. I've got my buffer ready. What products, the polishes I'm using today, which now makes this video a pseudo polishing video. But like I said, is this always this ripple effect. You know, you just can't touch one without touching another. Anyhow, I'm using Menzerna. We've got our high performance compound, and I've got my, what do they call it? Their superior performance polish, heavy duty, ultra fine. I'm going with a foam cutting pad, which is vastly different than a foam or than a wool cutting pad. This is a stiff foam pad, and by stiff I just mean relative to the finish pad. So I'm gonna do this real quick, get this task out of the way, then we'll move forward and I'll show you how I break it down in steps.